Oh, hi guys, Steve here. So, Jared, Karen, and I decided to make a video on classroom assessment and accountability. In this video, we interviewed three different people. We interviewed a principal, a teacher, and a student, my little sister. We decided to ask them 4 questions. Those questions were: what is involved in classroom assessment? How do teachers evaluate student learning and assign grades? What are standardized tests and how are their results used? Who is accountable for student learning? Let's see what those people had to say.
Fall is here, hear the yell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens, I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
You're gonna ask it, or do you want me to?
I'm gonna edit it so that I'm gonna go like this and ask it. And then
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, cool. So what is involved with classroom assessment?
All right, what's involved with classroom assessment? Classroom assessment could be, in my opinion, a lot of different things. It could be formative assessment, meaning just day-to-day things. Informal formative assessment, thumbs up, thumbs down, just checking for understanding as a lesson's taking place. It can also be formative assessment, like at the end of a lesson or at the end of something being taught. For example, a ticket out the door, or again, getting in small groups in a 30-second summary. But something a teacher can just take home or look at to make sure that the students are on track with the learning. But assessment also, classroom assessment also involves summative assessment. Are they getting it? Are they learning the concepts that the overall and overarching concepts that are being taught? That's more your mid-chapter tests, your end of the chapter test, even your final exams at the end of a semester. But I think along the way, assessment always has to be reviewed, by the instructor with regards to, again, am I bringing the kids along? Are they learning? The overarching objectives is what needs to be taught, and again, then looking for patterns if they aren't. If it's 1 or 2 students, then prescribing some remedies, or some looking at why maybe they're struggling and working that out, or looking for patterns in the assessment that through the assessment that might find holes in the instruction, and then reassessing the instruction.
Well, assessment to me means determining what students know, and there are a couple of different forms that can take. Formative assessment is how we figure out what a student knows during the process of learning, or when they are forming their learning. These types of activities might occur within a lesson, within a series of lessons, even perhaps after a series of lessons is complete. But the key here with formative assessment is that a teacher takes the information that's provided and determines what further instruction might be needed. It does not end in a score in the gradebook if you follow Marzano's approach to grading, standards-based grading. The other type of assessment would be summative assessment. Summative assessment occurs at the end of a period of learning when a student should be accountable for having mastered or being proficient on the skills or knowledge that has been covered. And that is the type of score that would be entered in the final grade book to show what they have mastered in the course of the unit.
People take tests and quizzes, and most people do homework, and so you do the homework and then the teacher assesses you on the test.
With respect to teachers evaluating student learning and assigning grades, again, to some degree, there's some freedom and flexibility with teachers on that. In our building, teachers do have end of unit tests, and they are assessments. They are consistent between the departments, so that a student has teacher A for algebra 1, and then a student that has teacher B for algebra 1. Those assessments, the end of unit assessments, are the same, so they're common assessments. However, teachers are encouraged and practice, assessing students, daily through daily informal assessments as well. Grades are assigned. Again, that does vary. We have a grading policy for the building and for the district that's in the handbook. But teachers are allowed then to have some freedom with respect to their grades, how much homework factors into it. Exam grades by district policy are 20% of the grade, so that would be really how grades are assigned and assessments taken care of that way, evaluations.
Well, that's a tricky question. Traditionally, and when I started my teaching career, teachers have assigned points to different assignments. A homework assignment might only be worth 10 points, whereas a test or an essay or a major project might be worth 100 points to indicate that it's more important and has more influence on the overall grade. At the end of the year, the student's grade is based on the number of points that they got out of the total possible in the year. I don't really like that approach anymore. There are a couple of reasons for that. I think it penalizes students unfairly for the learning that's occurring in the classroom. If you are assigning point values to homework assignments that are being given when students are just learning material, you are essentially penalizing their grade if they don't get it right away. And that's not fair. I don't think we can expect students to master a skill on their first try, especially if we're already planning on perhaps giving them multiple tries. I would prefer to go with a proficiency-based grading system now, and that's actually what I've been using in my classroom for several years now. I give a 4-point rubric for each standard that I teach my students. The 3 means that they're proficient, a 4 means they've gone above and beyond, 2 means that they are making progress but they haven't quite reached proficiency, and 1 means they have a lot of work left to do. That works out really well. I give all my students scores on assignments that they do based on that rubric. The only thing that actually goes into their final grade is their summative assignment, so that they're not being penalized for their learning work that goes into it. But I've still found that there's something missing. This is still very much the teacher saying you're good enough or you're not. And for students who don't have buy-in into teaching in the first place or into instruction in the first place, that's a problem. So I am actually looking at going gradeless this school year in a couple of my classes. We're trying it out. My students will be responsible for bringing their work to me and telling me what grade they believe they deserve based on the language of the standard. I'm really looking forward to giving that a shot and hoping to get some more student engagement in the learning and assessment process with that.
Trishna, how do teachers evaluate student learning and assign grades?
Can you repeat the question?
How do teachers evaluate student learning and assign grades?
What?
How do teachers evaluate student learning and assign grades? How do teachers know if you've learned the material that has been covered?
They give you tests. And they grade your test. And if you fail, then you didn't learn anything.
Okay. So standardized tests that we look at, we in our district, we're just in the middle of transition. We did use the ACT suite of tests, the Plan, Explore, and ACT. We're now transitioning to the SAT, so we got the PSAT 9, PSAT 10, and the SAT in terms of probably the primary standardized tests we look at. We also do work keys. We also do STAR testing, and that's more of a dipstick on checking progress throughout the year, progress monitoring, and we use a STAR test for new students coming in to kind of just see where their strengths and weaknesses are. Results are used, again, I will speak more to ACT because this will be the first year that we're looking at results from the SAT suite of tests, but we really used those standardized tests and the results to, again, find holes in our game as far as instruction. We also use it to kind of align curriculum. Where might we plug in a skill or plug in instruction? Where might we revisit that and spiraling them into instruction? With those types of tests, a lot of times we'll get an item analysis. So again, that gives us an ability to look at specific skills. We can look at where they're taught with regards to 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and again how our students are doing with those specific skills. So.
To me, standardized tests are tests that are given to a large group of students, bent on assessing how they measure up to all the students that are taking that same test. In theory, a standardized test should be based on the same standards that students are being taught in their classes. I don't think that is always what is happening. It should also be the same format that they are working in, and again, that is definitely not happening. Standardized tests like the SAT and the ACT and the MSTEP are, for the most part, multiple choice that allows students to guess, which to me skews the data. They also really don't have a lot of significance for students, so students don't have a lot of buy-in. They're being used right now to determine how much our students know for college, also for teacher evaluations, and I think for both of those purposes, they are not really being very effective tools.
What are standardized tests?
They're tests that the government gives you so that, like, colleges, oh god, there's a hill. Colleges look at them and schools get funding. And the better you do, the more money schools get.
Please. Okay, Patricia, next time please talk into the camera.
I thought I was gonna die.
Patricia, do you like standardized tests?
I think everybody's accountable for student learning to some degree. Teachers certainly are on the front line with regards to student learning. I think the onus is also on building administrators and curriculum directors, again, as we work, I think, as a team. I don't think any one person is accountable. I would also say that the student has accountability for their learning as well, particularly when you get to the secondary group of kids or secondary age of students. You'd like to think that parents contribute to that as well. I don't necessarily say that they're accountable for it, because really that's our job, and I know the family structure and things really vary from student to student. However, the phrase "it takes a village," to raise a child, it takes a village to educate a child too. So there's a lot of accountability across the boards, and when one piece of that is weak or compromised, others have to come in and step in. But also, again, from my perspective, we have to work on improving the techniques and seeing where we can help coach staff and or others along.
Well, in our current culture, I think most people would probably tell you that teachers are accountable for student learning. Certainly the teacher evaluation laws that are currently in effect nationwide would reflect that. But I think the truth is much more complex. I think all stakeholders are, in the end, responsible for student learning. And probably the most important of those is the student, him or herself, especially as they move toward the end of their public school education. Students need to be taking ownership of their learning. They need to understand that it's their efforts in the classroom that are ultimately going to help them learn or not. And as for the rest of us, teachers, parents, and anyone else who interacts with that student, we are their support system. We can't be the people force feeding them the information. It really is up to them in the end.
If the administrator's mad, then the teacher can't teach. So them too.
So everybody. Who's most responsible?
Probably the teacher, because they're the one actually dealing with the student.
Okay.
Okay.
I have no idea what any of that meant. Let's go to Karen, and she'll give us a more by-the-book approach to answering those questions.
What is involved in classroom assessment? Classroom assessment includes all the ways students learn and how that learning is measured. Its goal is to improve student learning and the way that teachers teach. It involves monitoring student progress, making instructional decisions, evaluating student achievement, and programs. How do teachers evaluate student learning and assign grades? Evaluation focuses on grades and may reflect classroom components other than course content and mastery level. These could include discussion, cooperation, attendance, and verbal ability. Assessment focuses on learning, teaching, and outcomes. It provides information for improving learning and teaching. Three major kinds of assessments are diagnostic, formative, and summative. A rubric is a simple way to set up a grading criteria for assignments. This tool is useful for teachers and helpful for students as well, because it defines in writing what is expected of the student to get a particular grade on an assignment. Grades are an evaluation of student work, a judgment of assessment quality with a number attached. They are a means of communicating, a source of motivation, a means of organizing a lesson or a unit. Additionally, grading provides students with feedback on their own learning, clarifying for them what they understand, what they don't understand, and where they can improve. Grading also provides feedback to instructors on their students' learning, information that can inform future teaching decisions. What are standardized tests and how are they used? Standardized tests, also termed high-stakes tests due to their far-reaching consequences, are usually repeated annually and are given to multiple groups of students targeting specific grade levels. They are administered and scored under controlled conditions. These tests are also standards-based. They must have validity in that they measure what is intended, as well as reliability in which they yield a pattern of results that are repeated and consistent over time. Some standardized tests across the United States include the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, which compares student achievement among countries. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, also known as the Nation's Report Card, allows comparisons to be made among states. There are also general standardized tests and state standards-based tests. Some benefits of standardized testings are that teachers and schools are held accountable. They allow comparisons to be made across districts. They are objective, standards-based, and accurate comparisons. Some of the drawbacks of standardized testing is that they evaluate a student's performance at one moment in time and may not reflect that student's true ability. It causes teachers to teach to the test, sacrificing instruction in other areas of curriculum. They create stress for both students and teachers. Who is accountable for student learning? The greatest burden for accountability of student learning lies with teachers, principals, and schools. Families, the government, and local and school administration are often held less accountable.
Using the proper tools in classroom assessment can help identify areas of strength and weakness. This can lead to instruction and activities that enhance areas of current understanding and boost areas that need additional focus. Teachers need to set clear expectations and goals for proper student evaluation. For example, if you want to know how well a student understands trigonometry, testing them on Shakespeare won't get you there. Differentiated assessment techniques should be employed for students to prove proficiency. Standardized tests may have good intentions, but they severely lack proper implementation. That poor elephant. Teaching to a standardized test is not a solution. Acknowledge that the testing occurs and provide students with instruction that promotes learning that can carry over to being successful on standardized tests. Remember that you as a teacher are not solely responsible for student learning, but are a big factor. Love the students, create a safe and secure learning environment, provide effective instruction and assessments, and never give up.